What's up, Rob?
I'm still just steamed thinking about all the bros trying to cancel Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, goodness gracious.
They hate to see a girl boss winning, and all the people coming out of the woodwork just because this lady, quote unquote, doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know what her job is, doesn't know what year it is, Do you think you need to know that kind of stuff to be a U.S. senator? I mean, Jesus. I mean, how hard can it possibly be?
I mean, I realize you're doing a bit, but also no.
Yeah. No, I know.
Oh, yeah. They're still doubling down on this. Like, we as we talked about in our last episode with Sam Biddle, her staying in there is now stopping any Senate action or Senate subpoena for Clarence Thomas. And then today, after that story was reported, today, there was another wave of stories about all of these people who are upset on her behalf, including GOP Republican or GOP women who are trying to frame it as a feminism issue, which to me, that struck me as a purely cynical play. It's like they're using that now just because they know it'll protect Clarence Thomas. Like, now is the time that they start to speak out once they realize, hey, her staying in there is going to protect Thomas. That I thought was purely cynical, and I saw that being reported today on top of all these other people who, again, are coming to her defense.
Not only protecting Thomas, but like limiting the Democrats' ability to like appoint judges, which is the one thing, like we were saying in the previous episode, the one thing that they said that they were going to be able to do after losing control of the House in the midterms. And it's amazing too, because they're just like, please, they're asking Republicans to bail them out. If only if you can help us, we can, replace her briefly. And it's like, no, they're not going to be doing that. They're not going to be helping you out on that one. If only we can get them to help us, and maybe we can, impeach Clarence Thomas. We'll just get some conservative votes on board. No, they're the ones that are benefiting from this. They will not be helping you out on that. You're going to be on your own, unfortunately. And they're just kind of like, well, what can you do? It kind of seems like it's just another in the long list of excuses for them just to like not do anything, which is, I think that's if you're kind of a mainstream Democrat, that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's their bread and butter. Just, our hands are tied. We have all of these other options that we're not going to engage in at all, but because Republicans won't work with us, we're just going to bring everything to a grinding halt.
We were totally planning on doing all kinds of good stuff, and unfortunately we can't now. But
oh, bro, I really wanted to confirm all those judges, but Republicans. So stupid. It's so stupid.
Exactly.
Oh man.
But like Jordan was mentioning, the previous episode with the Intercept's Sam Biddle was really great. We talked about the Feinstein thing, and we talked about all that. We also talked about this story that Sam was doing about the U.S. military, like targeting kids and using these kind of like dystopian tech loopholes to track and monitor kids and serve them ads to try and get them involved in the military. Really weird and disturbing stuff, but Sam's story was really great, and it was another good bonus episode for the paid interns.
Yeah. The Georgia National Guard is drawing a 1 mile radius around like hundreds of high schools in Georgia and identifying people in that area to serve kids and high schoolers, potentially, recruitment ads. But the way those lines are drawn, because it's such a wide radius, it's also pulling in middle schools and parks and all these other community centers and areas. So it's very likely that because of this technology's, somewhat rudimentary ability to identify people, they are almost certainly going to be serving children military recruiting ads. Really, really fucked up. We get deep into the weeds on that. Just the use of this type of technology in a broader context, and how it's a continuation of some really predatory recruiting practices by the military. Really, really fun conversation with Sam. I enjoyed it. You can listen to it by subscribing at theinsurgents.substack.com. Just $5 a month. You get an extra episode every week, and you help keep this show going, which we really appreciate because we love doing it for you.
Yes, we do. And today we've got Andrew Lawrence coming on the show. Andrew Lawrence of Media Matters. who spends every day monitoring the absolute fire hose of insane shit that's being spewed out from Fox News and other kind of conservative media platforms. That was a really good conversation as well. We got a lot of good stuff going on in the show right now.
Yeah, we do. And you know what? If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we ask every once in a while, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, if you can give us a 5-star rating, that helps boost the show on Apple. We haven't done this in a while, but every so often we like to ask. So if you want to leave a review, that's great. Don't get our names wrong. People seem to just get our names confused in those reviews. But just to clarify, our names are Rob and Jordan. And if you want to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, you can do that. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, sometimes messing up the actual name of the podcast, which is amazing because you're on the website. It says it right there, but people still have a hard time with that. Yeah.
Oh, well, let's get into our conversation with Andrew.
Yeah, let's do that. It was a good one. And Andrew Lawrence is going to be joining the show right after this.
You know, it was against my better judgment to allow a Lightning fan on the podcast, but here we are.
Go Bolts. Go Bolts, baby.
You two are all decked out here.
We're ready.
I feel a little...
It's playoff season, baby.
Underdressed.
Hockey playoffs. Can't beat it.
Do you own any hockey merch? Like anything? Even a t-shirt?
Nothing. No. Like we were saying, I'm the one Canadian in this conversation, but I'm really not a ton of interest in the NHL or the NHL playoffs. Sometimes when the Montreal Canadiens are in the playoffs, I'll watch, but they were horrendous this year. So
yeah, they're not in the playoffs that often. So
no, they were not good this year at all.
Of any sport, I think hockey and maybe soccer, hockey jerseys and soccer jerseys are probably the more or most fashionable that you could wear, especially as a white guy. Like wearing an NBA jersey, like a basketball jersey as a white guy looks so fucking weird. I just look like a fucking dope. I had an Iverson jersey as a kid and I think back on it and it's like, well, what the fuck was I doing?
Yeah. I had a lot of basketball jerseys as well.
This is just like a long sleeve t-shirt with some embroidery.
And it's a really big part of hockey culture as well. The whole jersey, the player that you're picking and home or away or the specialty, that type of thing. And they look good, except you cannot wear them with shorts. Do not wear your hockey. Jordan, I know you love shorts, dude. I know you're probably wearing shorts right now, actually.
Actually, I'm not even wearing pants right now.
So no, me either.
Winnie the Pooh over here.
We'll allow it.
Oh God!
No, I mean, Andrew, like you're obviously a big Lightning guy, and
I am.
That's the thing. Like I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, but not the Leafs, and like I just pity the Leafs fans. I even had a few Leafs fans like how every year they just find the most painful and horrendous way to lose. Last year was horrendous, and then I had a couple of Leafs fans kind of trying to tell me, no, I think this is the year they're gonna get out of the first round. And I saw that they were matched up with the Lightning, and I was just like, no way, I'm not getting pulled into that. No, absolutely not. And I'm see that my decision was a wise one to avoid that. Yeah.
Well, it's one game so far. Winning game one on the road is huge because you take home ice advantage away. That series last year, it went to, I think the Leafs were up 3-2 on the Lightning, and we had to win the last two.
3-1.
Yeah, was it 3-1? Yeah, and then Nick Paul came through in Game 7 and scored 2 goals for us. And now, this year coming into the playoffs, the Lightning were cold. They were. I think they only won 13 of their last 30 games, something like that. And a lot of chatter that like this is the year for the Leafs. They're going to get out of the first round, and like I really don't want them to. All that garbage, like all that preemptive celebrating from Leafs fans, and to see the sad faces outside of their arena last night, and it was so good. It was so good. 7-3.
If there's one fandom in any sports league franchise that should never preemptively celebrate. That would be the one. But you'd think maybe they would learn this lesson by now.
You would think, you would think. And hockey playoffs are just so crazy that the Lightning, it was 2019. They were setting records. It was, most wins in a season, most goals scored, fewest goals allowed, all of that. And then they get swept in the first round by Columbus, 4-0. And that sort of catapulted them to the run that they've been on now. But you just don't know, man, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah. They had
that's the thing for me.
Last night.
Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. They had a huge win last night, but you had some, I just fucked it up. Never mind. Go, Rob. I'll come back to it. I gotta put. Okay, I forgot his name.
Sorry.
Eric Cernak. Just.
Oh yeah, dude.
Go, Rob.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. I just I'm a basketball fan. And I find when you are emotionally invested in hockey, especially in the playoffs, it's so stressful that it's actively unpleasant, I think, to watch. It's genuinely not enjoyable, I think, for me.
The anxiety, because
in a basketball game, it's kind of high scoring. There's back and forth, but it's in hockey, it's just because every single shot all of a sudden takes on this kind of heaviness to it. And there's nothing in hockey, a 2-goal lead, having your team have a 2-goal lead in a hockey game is the most miserable experience. It's just, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I just don't enjoy it at all. It's unpleasant to watch.
There's a hockey Twitter guy, I think it was Pete Blackburn, who said that the NHL playoffs are like skydiving out of a helicopter while doing an ounce of cocaine at the same time. It's just terrifying, especially when you're emotionally invested in this team. It's crazy. But I'm going to the game on Saturday, Game 3 in Tampa, and there is nothing like a playoff hockey game live. It is so fun and so exciting, and I'm just so excited. I can't wait to get down there. Hopefully, we're up 2-0.
Oh, that would be sick. They look strong. They looked strong most of the season. Like you said, they had a little bit of a cold patch near the end, but that's a team that could easily turn it around.
Yeah.
The team that did go into the playoffs hot, and I would say had a bigger win last night.
If you say so.
The New York Rangers, who beat the Devils last night on the road. Both our teams took away Game 1 road wins. That's exciting for both. We were both DMing last night during the games. It was so exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's so big.
The playoff hockey excitement, though, I think was really encapsulated on Monday during the Wild and Stars game that went to double overtime. And playoff overtime is different than regular season overtime in the NHL, where you just play a full another period. You don't play 3-on-3 for a few minutes and go to a shootout. And that was just one of the most exciting hockey games I've ever seen. Wild ended up winning 3-2, but Ottinger, the goalie for the Stars, was just making incredible saves all night. It could have easily been 7-2 if it wasn't for him. It was crazy how much of a factor he was singularly in that game for the Stars.
Yeah, and you can get a team that is less talented, but their goalie gets hot, man, and that it can just propel you through the entire playoffs. Just if you can't get a goal past the guy. But I told you, I think last night, I like Dallas a lot. I like Minnesota a lot. I think the winner of that series comes out of the West, and I know a lot of people like Edmonton a lot. Obviously McDavid and Draisaitl.
Their goalie sucks.
Their goalie sucks, man. Yeah, and it's just McDavid and Draisaitl can't be on the ice for 60 minutes. So. But God, McDavid is so good, man. He is just unreal.
So, Rob,
poor Rob.
Rob, you're not a hockey fan, but like you're doing with the NBA because the Raptors got eliminated. Now's a good time to pick a new team.
That's right, and I did
playoffs,
that.
so you can just temporarily throw you picked a team in the NBA. You're a Kings guy.
Yeah,
but it's time to do it for the NHL, and I think you should just throw your support behind New York. Obviously, Andrew thinks Tampa Bay should be your team. But have you given any thought to who your playoff team is going to be in the NHL?
not really. Maybe the Oilers. I don't know. You get the kind of sentimental. They're one of the all-time great dynasties, NHL dynasties. That classic team with Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier and Yari Curry. I don't really know. I think that McDavid is one of the players now. I really don't know. I'm I'm that clueless about this. I'm going to go with them.
Pick a team and watch.
I'm going to go with them. Canada may be a fake country. Right. Canada may be a fake country. I don't really have much like nationalistic feelings about Canada. It's like a resource extraction colony masquerading as a country. But you know what? I'm still going to go with the Canadian team with my non-committal choice here to support.
I can tell you're a lifelong Edmonton Oilers fan.
That's right. Yeah.
Day one.
I do like those jerseys with the orange shoulder pads. Those are slick.
Yeah, they have a cool logo. Going back to your NBA team though, your Kings guy,
light the beam.
They are embroiled in a light the beam. They're embroiled in a pretty big NBA drama storyline this week.
I know. After
Draymond Green of the Warriors stomped on Domantas Sabonis' ribs during a game and got ejected, and then it was announced he's suspended. Now the Warriors fans are upset, saying that Sabonis of the Kings, this is your team, lifelong day one top fan. Yeah. He's playing dirty out there. They're saying it's him that's playing dirty. Did you guys see these like the outrage over Domantas Sabonis and the confusion over why Draymond Green, one of the filthiest players in the NBA, got a quote harsh penalty for stepping on someone's ribs?
I mean, I was watching the game. Both those games have been very good, and I've honestly I've been really impressed with the Kings' performance. Was after such a long playoff drought. Really impressive to see them kind of walk in there and just not really be affected by any of the pressure. De'Aaron Fox is his first playoff games, just like looking absolutely dominant, which is like a really impressive thing. Some guys, sometimes when you watch any sport, when that environment kind of kicks in and there's the pressure and all the the game tightens up, some people don't rise to the occasion. So it's been really impressive to see him and the team completely outplay the Warriors in those first couple games. So, and it's just, it's a satisfying story. It's a long time coming. The crowd is great because they're so starved for having a team to actually root for. So I think I made a good choice in this one. But yeah, I was watching the game and I did think Sabonis grabbed Draymond's foot. Like that seemed clear to me. I think obviously the like responding to that with like a Stone Cold Steve Austin style, like mud hole stomping was maybe a little bit much. And then he tried to do this kind of like ballet thing, kind of pretending like he didn't have a choice or whatever. I was a little surprised he got ejected. I guess like in retrospect it makes sense, but I was surprised also by like then he got a suspension. But you realize also that it's like they probably, if he had just like sat down on the bench and kept quiet, it probably wouldn't have happened. But because he's out there, like speaking of wrestling, like he's riling up the crowd and healing it up and screaming at everybody and that with David Silver like with Adam Silver in the crowd. Not really surprised in that context that he did get suspended, but I did think Sabonis grabbed his foot, but probably don't stomp a guy on national TV.
Yeah. They said the punishment was that severe because he's it's discouraged. They said it's because he's a repeat offender, which, yes, like the guy is filthy. He's like kicked people in the nuts. He kicks people all the time. He like deliberately flails his arms and smacks people in the face and does this like, who, me routine. This isn't new. And the fact that Warriors fans are acting like this is some, overreach by the NBA is just so funny. Yeah. Like they're just refusing.
They're always
to acknowledge
favoring the Sacramento Kings.
Well documented, right? Like the team that has experienced more success than any other team in the NBA in the last decade. That's the team that acting like that's the fan base. It's all these like Silicon Valley and like tech people too who are feel like that's like their fan base. It just fucking sucks. I hate that team just because of all the wins they got over the Cavs in the finals throughout the 2010s.
Yeah, and they probably would have beaten them in the one series that the Cavs won if Draymond hadn't been suspended at that time as well.
Yeah, again, for filthy play. Like, it's ridiculous. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on to more important things. Andrew Lawrence, welcome. You are at Media Matters. You and I used to work together there. You cover the night shift there, which is just the worst of the fucking worst on Fox's programming slate. And you've been just kind of staring into the abyss for years. But before we get to that, we have to ask you a tough hardball question we ask of all of our guests, just so we know who we're dealing with. Andrew Lawrence, are you a gamer?
Oh, absolutely. I was hoping we could talk video games actually a little bit. I'm definitely a gamer. Yes, I am a gamer.
Good. What have you played lately?
Dude, so I recently beat Cyberpunk 2077. I got all the way through. It's
nice.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as glitchy. I have so many thoughts about that game. And then
I'm playing it right now. I just started it a week or so ago.
Oh, how far into it are you?
Not super far. I just did that mission at the shopping mall in Pacifica or whatever it is, and I was
the animals.
I did that I think long before I was ready to. And now I'm doing side quests and grinding and leveling up because it took me so long to get through that because I'm nowhere near at the level that I think I should have been when I attempted it.
Tell me about your V, man. What's your backstory and all that? What'd you go with?
He is like a street guy. He's not a corpo. Just like average genitals. You know, I didn't really go too crazy in the genital selection screen. You know, just kind of went with what was there.
Hog. Giant.
Yeah, that was my main thing. Yeah, that's main thing. Yeah, I grew up on the street, average genitals, and that's pretty much his character.
That's your whole story. Yeah, that's his story.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny, man.
I forgot that was a feature.
Yeah,
I forgot that was a feature.
I did the street kid
Why did they
thing.
do that?
Why not, man? I mean, it's about immersion,
yeah.
Jordan. I was
more games should have that.
I did the street kid thing too, and one of my critiques of this game is like it drove me crazy how like, oh, you're this guy that grew up on the mean streets of Night City. You've been here your whole life, blah blah blah. And then throughout the game, you don't meet a single person that you knew beforehand. You don't have a family, or like you don't run into your second grade teacher. No, like everybody that you know in that game, you meet like while you're playing the game, which I thought was really weird. But I really liked it. Like I liked it a lot. I don't think it's a great game. Like I still have issues with it. I think that like I'm playing The Witcher right now, and like I understand why this is impossible for game developers, but it's like in The Witcher you go into a village with like 30 people and it just feels alive. Everybody's out there, they're doing something, they're doing a job. It feels like if you followed somebody around for an entire day, they would go out into the fields and then they would have to come home and prepare dinner and all that. In Night City, it was just like a bunch of mannequins kind of moving around. It just like, you know, a city of 2 million people or whatever it is, 20 million people feels more dead than like a village of 50, you know? And I understand why that's difficult for game developers, but for me, like that, those little things kind of bug me about that game.
I also find it a little frustrating too, how it really does a good job of getting that cyberpunk aesthetic right, but in terms of like the actual like themes and the storytelling, like it's really kind of a surface level thing. I don't like in a cyberpunk game doing like fetch quests for the Night City Police Department and being like a volunteer police officer. I think that's kind of a weird element to throw in your like cyberpunk game, which is generally supposed to be like, you know, against authority and operating outside that system. But you're like doing quests with the NCPD. I'm not really into that.
Yeah, and then, you know, you go and then you just go and do a quest for the gangs, and they don't care that like you're working with the cops or anything, you know? Yeah. I feel like all the ingredients are there for an incredible game and experience, you know? And it's not put together exactly correctly, you know? But just for like, I fired that game. I got a PlayStation 5. I don't know, maybe 8 months or so ago. And I had already bought Cyberpunk and didn't play it all that much. And I just wanted to fire it up and look at how pretty Night City was and all that. And I was like instantly hooked once I did that and created my guy and got through the little prologue and all of that. I mean, it is a gorgeous game. Like it's just absolutely stunning, like walking around Night City. And there's just so much potential there, I feel like.
I have not played Cyberpunk. I have it. It came with my Xbox, but I haven't touched it. Eventually I will. I need to.
But you're more like first person shooters, aren't you?
Yeah, for the most part. It's just a lot of Fortnite. And I've just been getting into FIFA lately also.
Oh, so fun.
And I bought the new EA golf game because that's such a great franchise. The Road to the Masters just came out like a week or two ago, and it's stunning. And you can play Augusta National. So I've been just playing just multiple rounds on Augusta National over and over again and get an appreciation for just how fucking hard that course is. Like how fast the greens are. You have just one wrong chip or putt and that ball is just gone. That is such a brutal course. It's been mostly just Fortnite, FIFA, and Road to the Masters lately, which is kind of like normie gamer stuff, but I like what I like, man. Yeah, no,
I'm usually first-person shooters and sports games, But I don't know, man. Something about I've been getting into RPGs a little bit more lately, and I don't know. I'm enjoying sort of getting lost in those worlds, I guess.
Nice. Well, we have you here, like we mentioned when we introduced you, because you, unfortunately, know a hell of a lot about Fox News and the Fox cinematic universe. Mm-hmm. Now, Fox was supposed to be in court in Delaware this week in their case with Dominion. Dominion was suing them for, was it $1.6 billion or so for defamation after, Fox repeatedly pushed these lies, these election denialist lies for months about the 2020 election as part of that, smeared and defamed Dominion, saying that these machines were rigged, or claiming that these machines could be rigged. Now, after months of Fox trying to settle before it went to trial, the day they finally got to court, after 2 hours or so, the lawyers met, they reached an agreement, and they settled. We don't have that trial. But as somebody who has been watching it and following it, could you tell listeners what we would have seen had this proceeded, and what this still isn't a great thing for Fox? They have another case with Smartmatic. So where does this go from here, and what would we have seen had this case proceeded?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we saw, as far as like a large overview, we kind of saw what the arguments were going to be. Dominion had, during discovery, they had found text messages and emails from Fox News executives, from on-air hosts like Tucker Carlson, Maria Bartiromo, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, all the big ones, saying that like they knew that this was all bullshit, that it's all lies, that all this election stuff, it's false. The people that they were bringing on air to interview as experts, people like Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani. Behind the scenes, you had Tucker Carlson and all these executives calling them absolutely insane, saying that they knew that they were lying. And so I think that like we would have seen more of that. I don't know if there was any new text messages, things like that we would have seen, but we also would have gotten Rupert Murdoch, Tucker Carlson, and all these people on the stand where they would have had to admit, under oath that they were lying and that they knew that they were lying to their audience, and that the reason why that they were lying to their audience is because they wanted to trick them into watching. You have to understand the Fox News viewers, they just want a guy on TV telling them that they're right. Telling them that the election was rigged, that COVID vaccines don't work, that Anthony Fauci belongs in jail. Like that's what they want to hear, and Fox News hosts have to deliver it, because if they don't, Fox News viewers are going to go to OAN, or they're going to turn on the Matt Walsh podcast, or there's this right-wing conservative media industrial complex will provide them with it if Fox News doesn't. So, they were scared to death of losing their viewers, and so they made the decision that they were going to have to lie. And in the course of that, they lied about Dominion. You brought up Smartmatic, and that's an even larger case. They're asking for, I believe it's $2.5 billion in defamation, and Smartmatic is a larger company, so that's why that number is a little bit bigger. But that's coming up as well, and that has the potential for the same thing. But I think that a lot of people I'm seeing, a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people that I talk to are really disappointed that Dominion decided to settle. But it was in their best interest to settle. I mean, we are talking about generational money here, $787 million for a company that brings in $18 million in revenue per year. So, I mean, they absolutely had to settle here. If you were their lawyer, you would have, recommended that they settle as well, because it's such a ridiculous number. But then they don't even have to admit on air that they lied. They don't have to tell their viewers that, like, what we were telling you wasn't true. And so, now Fox News can go out there and there's a roadmap now. Like, they can keep pushing the exact same lies that they've been pushing, but they just don't. As long as they don't mention a specific company by name, they're going to get away with it. And so it's disappointing from that standpoint. We also learned a lot about Fox News and the inner workings. So there's benefits to it as well. But I would have liked to have seen it gone further, and we'll see what happens with Smartmatic. They're signaling right now that they want to push theirs towards trial. But again, if somebody dangles $1 billion in front of your face, that type of money is really, really hard to say no to. So, and you asked, where does it go from here? I think that, billionaires, Rupert Murdoch, they don't get rich by just brushing off $750 million and not worrying about it. I mean, there's you would think that internally there would be some repercussions and that they would try to be a little bit more careful. I don't know if that's true, but I think that the biggest benefit for us right now is just what was exposed in those text messages and emails about Fox News hosts and executives lying to trick their viewers into watching just to pad their own bank account.
I think it's really interesting, given the fact that the election stuff is starting to ramp back up, as surreal as that is. Trump just did this interview with Tucker Carlson, a week or two ago. And I think it's so funny now that we've seen the inner workings of that, and Tucker's text messages about Trump where he's just I can't fucking stand this guy anymore. I can't wait till he's out of our hair. And how he's able to really just kind of brush that off. And it's amazing how it doesn't really kind of cost them any credibility. I mean, they're just able to kind of go on with business as usual. We've all seen the kind of inner workings of it, but I think it's amazing how they're able to just totally continue on while pretending that none of that stuff happened. And Tucker can still go about doing his thing and still give this kind of sycophantic interview with Trump, which was very funny, by the way. Trump endlessly praising Xi Jinping and how great and wonderful he was. I thought that was pretty funny. And his beautiful female, and she had the most beautiful interpreter. I thought that was really good too. But yeah, I think it's funny how, despite the fact that we've seen all these people talk about how ludicrous all those claims were and how annoyed they are about Trump and Trumpism, but now they can just kind of pretend that didn't happen. And I guess for their viewers, they don't seem to mind all that much.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that they know how desperately they need Trump supporters, that whole MAGA world, to be addicted to their shows, to their cable station in general. And it really is, a symbiotic relationship. I mean, Fox News needs those Trump supporters to watch every single night. And Trump needs he at least needs Fox News on his side. I mean, at least not hammering him and criticizing him. I would say they've been fairly neutral so far in the Republican primary, and that's what Trump wants or needs more than anything. But they really need each other. And as far as the Fox News viewers, it's, and you said that it's upsetting that their credibility hasn't taken a hit too much. I mean, I would disagree with you a little bit there. I think that Fox News's influence outside of that conservative media bubble, I think in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen that really shrink. It used to be they would just say Benghazi enough and 60 Minutes would do a story on it, covering it, how they want. And I don't think you really see that as much anymore. But inside the bubble, their influence has just grown. What Tucker Carlson says is gospel inside that bubble. And so I think that it's just not going to break out of there. And it was really interesting to me that you haven't really seen conservative media like that. Fox News' actual competitors, not just OAN and Newsmax, but the people online, Ben Shapiro's outlet. You didn't see them really attack Fox News for what is a pretty egregious insult to their viewers. Nobody really took them on. And so it's not penetrating in that bubble, But I do think that it does chip away at the credibility of Fox News to where it doesn't get outside that bubble and as easily as it did in the past.
You mentioned earlier that they don't have to acknowledge this on air as part of this settlement agreement. They don't have to apologize, admit they were wrong, issue a retraction, anything like that. But I'm wondering, would that even matter? Because they would probably run it in the daytime. They would do it once, whatever the minimum threshold was, and never talk about it again. And as somebody who watches this stuff, and you've seen, and we've talked about how they create these narratives and these worlds, the people they focus on and obsess over, to the average person, the non-Fox viewer, they have no idea who it is. Like Nellie Orr being like a central figure in some like grand government conspiracy.
FBI
like, I don't
lovebirds.
even know who that person was. Yeah, Peter Strzok and Nellie Orr. Like I don't know what their fucking role is, but I remember them being villains.
Right.
So would an apology or a retraction or anything even matter?
No, not really. I mean, it would go viral on Twitter for a couple of days, and you know, those of us on the left that don't like Fox News, we would make fun of them for it. But I also think that like it's another arrow in your quiver as well. You know, when you come out when somebody says, I mean, are we allowed to cuss on here? Okay, so like when somebody like. Like I get a ton of Tucker Carlson defenders in my mentions, and like at this point, when I see them in there, when they're replying to me on Twitter, I'm just replying with a screenshot of Tucker's producer calling Fox viewers cousin fucking terrorists. You know, which is what they actually did. So like, I think that like I do think that it sort of, I think it chips away. Like, and I think that like. We can use this to sort of make the point that is true that Fox News is just propaganda and nonsense, and that they're lying to you and tricking you into watching just so Rupert Murdoch can get a fifth yacht. You know, so I do think that there is benefit there, even if it doesn't really penetrate that bubble. But I mean, again, you got to realize that, you know, Fox News, its most watched shows on its most watched nights are getting 3 million people. Which is, I mean, yeah, it leads cable news. It's also only 1% of the American population. So, you know, I think that hurting their credibility with the other 99% of people out there, I think there's a real benefit to that as well. And I do think that these text messages and this story help in that effort.
So, you know, they have upfronts coming up, which is this big advertiser push. You know, most cable and television networks sell a majority of their ads during this one period in the spring, and they have this glamorous presentation in front of all these ad executives in New York. Fox, you know, for years has tried to sell advertisers on how people trust the network, how most of the country relies on the network, and really tries to push this news division and opinion side divide. And we've seen how those lines have blurred, but recently we've seen kind of some people, I don't know if they're necessarily going off script, but kind of break from that role, their role, depending on which side they are. And mostly it's been on the news side. And there's been internal backlash for them even acknowledging that it's all bullshit, that they all know what they're doing. It's all just a fucking facade. Do you think that advertisers are going to consider this Dominion settlement and the stuff that came out as part of this case and the pending litigation with Smartmatic when they're making advertising decisions?
I mean, you're asking me if I think corporations care more about the truth than they do about, you know, dollars. And like, no, I don't think so.
I'm setting you up.
I know. And, you know, I mean, it's the same thing with Dominion. Like, God bless them, but like, we can't be looking to businesses and large corporations to sort of save us from these monsters. And like, yeah, I do think that the advertiser pressure that we've put on them, Media Matters, over the past few years, and you were a part of this as well, it has clearly worked. I mean, they do not have very many advertisers at this point. And they do try to sell it in between opinion and news, but there's so little news on Fox at this point. I mean, it's basically Special Report at 6:00, and everything else is either Tucker Carlson or a Tucker Carlson clone, you know, at this point. So you don't even really hear that distinction from Fox News as much anymore because there isn't, you're right, like there isn't really a distinction anymore. But, you know, I think that like the advertiser push is incredibly important. I also think that the cable fees that Fox News gets is also really important. And they're currently renegotiating those fees right now as well, and it seems like they're getting a lot of pressure from cable subscribers to not force us to buy Fox News on every single package, and we'll see what happens there. I can't say that I'm incredibly optimistic, but I think that like the outrage and I'm seeing this sort of take off, this messaging as well, sort of take off with with the normies, for lack of a better term, for people that aren't really engaged. To see people that aren't really engaged in politics and the news, to see them sort of understand that their $2-3 a month are going to Fox News, even though they don't watch it. People, that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And so I'm hoping that with enough noise being made that maybe there will be a difference made.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like the way the market works, the reality is, as long as they're pulling in big ratings, which they still are, there's going to be someone that's going to be able to, that's going to give them money. Right. I mean, with Tucker Carlson, I think is a good example, right? I mean, when someone goes and shoots up a Walmart targeting immigrants and their manifesto sounds exactly like a Tucker Carlson monologue, you'd think that would be a big turnoff for people for different brands that want to advertise there. But like you point out, I'm sure there's been some impact, and there are brands that have moved away from it. But they're not, as long as they're pulling those kind of big ratings, or he's pulling those kind of ratings, it's never going to go as far as it needs to.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at like how much more evidence do you need? You mentioned the El Paso Walmart. There's the Buffalo Tops grocery store, same thing, great replacement theory. You look at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. That was George Soros was funding the Caravans conspiracy that motivated that. Yep. Christchurch, you had a segment in his manifesto that echoed almost word for word a Tucker Carlson rant on diversity. There's the Planned Parenthood in Colorado that the guy shot up yelling about baby parts. I mean, it's on and on and on. Like, these people are causing mass violence. That's not even getting into like the COVID vaccine skepticism that's killing off their viewers, all this type of stuff. And yet they still do have advertisers. I mean, the advertisers are kind of embarrassing at this point, but people are still giving them money. And you still have some major brands that are also advertising there as well. And it's, it's really depressing. Like that people are just, it's Fox News, because they have that news moniker in their name. It feels like because of that, people sort of give them credibility that they don't deserve, and sort of look the other way on this stuff. And that's really depressing, and it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up all these like mass shootings that have had this kind of like rhetorical crossover with things that Fox hosts say, as well as other conservative commentators like Ben Shapiro, et cetera, which makes it all the more, I think, cynical and disgusting the way that they've taken a few of those recent incidents where the violent shootings have taken place with transgender people, and have the same people, literally the same people that have inspired so much violence themselves, in my opinion, allegedly, are now trying to kind of create this narrative that trans people are part of some kind of dangerous like terrorist movement, despite the fact that like these recent incidents, as horrible as they are an absolute drop in the bucket in terms of the mass violence that's happening all the time in America, and the mass violence that's being directly influenced by like right-wing demagoguery that you see on Fox News and conservative media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, as far as like blaming trans people for all mass shootings now, like it's part of their playbook as well. I mean, a few years ago when the caravan and immigration was the big thing, Sean Hannity would sit there and scroll crimes committed by illegal immigrants for 5 minutes, by name. And so they're trying
and that's
to
literally like Nazi shit as well. Like that's quite literally, out of their playbook.
Yeah. And so, that's why you see this, and you see these people that like see a black teenager show up to their front door and just pull the trigger immediately. You have they're creating this fear to where their viewers, who are overly older, white, male, reactionary, and armed, you shouldn't get these people all worked up like this, and they know exactly what they're doing. Like they can't not know at this point when you see it play out over and over and over again. And, there's just, you would think that there would be some sort of self-reflection, after El Paso, when this guy went in there yelling about great replacement and shot a bunch of people up. You would think that like, even if Tucker Carlson thinks it's true, you think that he might pump the brakes a little bit and be like, all right, like there's some scary people out there. they're being influenced by this. But no, like, I mean, he went right back into it the next night, just straight pumping that same garbage into people's heads. And there isn't anybody at Fox News that'll tell him no, and there isn't anybody really in the corporate world that's going to tell them no, as long as they're making money for them.
I mean, beyond these, targeted racist or anti-choice white nationalist shootings, I think the general sense of fear that Fox sells viewers on and has them worked up into this paranoid frenzy was really on display this week. There were multiple instances of kids, going to the wrong home, pulling in the wrong driveway, and being shot by these fucking lunatics who, just saw a stranger. Mm-hmm. One of them in these stories was black, but the other one was not. And just the general sense of fear that they have. They're living in this kind of prison in their own home where any outsider is a threat.
It's like a fentanyl dealing trans MS-13 member coming to my house Topeka or whatever.
Right. Yeah, one was a 16-year-old kid, one's a 20-year-old girl, and then I saw another story in Texas, teenagers got into the wrong car at a store. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, but this is so important for Fox's business model. I mean, we saw this in the Dominion stuff. Like, they need their viewers to be addicted to watching their programs. And if you're sitting there and you're watching Tucker Carlson and he's telling you that the transgender people are going to end civilization, Cory Booker is going to destroy the suburbs, MS-13 is coming for you. And if you're not hearing that anywhere else, you're thinking to yourself, I need to watch Tucker Carlson every single night or I might die. It's actually paramount to my survival because they're warning me about these things that are going to kill other people. And he's the only one saying it. So, like, you get addicted to that type of shit. And it's like I sort of get it. Like, there's like this primal urge to I don't know, to feel that way. You know what I mean? Like, people, I can understand sort of how it's an addicting feeling to be scared like that. But Fox News is taking advantage of it and heightening it and making it worse in order for profit, like to make money. And it's so sick and it's so cynical, and they know exactly what they're doing. And we've seen proof of that now. And they're just chugging along, and like, yeah, that it sucks. Like, it's really gross.
Or another thing they like to do is scare their viewers about dangerous liberals who have their daughters date MS-13 members rather than Republicans too. They hate that, and they got to do a whole weekend news cycle about that. Yeah,
the numerous articles and
yeah.
Oh man. At least we know what. At least we know what the AR stands for.
Yeah, exactly.
I rewatched that clip when you shared it the other day.
It's so funny
when someone did one of those like engagement bait posts. Like, what's your biggest Twitter controversy? And the fact that they brought in some like police chief from Staten Island,
Long Island,
about how dangerous MS-13 was.
That's you want dating your daughter.
It's like, what are they doing?
It's so funny because they actually acknowledge that it's fake too during that's what makes it so great, is that they acknowledge that it's a joke. He's like, he would rather his daughter, who he does not actually have, and they continue. And it's like, well, what are we doing here then? Like, this is, you're acknowledging that it's not a real thing. And they built this whole segment around it. Fucking one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me. Definitely.
Did you do the Antifa Super Soldiers one as well? Was that you, or was it?
That was
no, that was Krang T. Nelson, I think. Yeah.
So good. So good.
The way that's been baked into the lexicon online is hilarious. And it's being used in other ways now. I saw someone talk about Biden's IRS super soldiers in the context of this new study that found that all of this additional IRS funding, which Republicans bemoaned as creating a bunch of new IRS agents, ultimately reduced the wait time if you need to talk to somebody about your taxes to like 4 minutes. You're on a 4-minute hold, which is down from like, I don't know. It
was like 87 minutes or something last year. Yeah.
Something crazy. Yeah. And like a vast majority of all callers got to speak to somebody. I think that's a good idea because there's nothing more frustrating when you're dealing with something that already sucks than to deal with some automated prompt. Like, I fucking hate that. So having somebody just talk you through it, that's great. But someone called them the IRS super soldiers, and I was just thinking about how crazy it is that one tweet got baked into the lexicon. It's great.
It's like Goblin mode.
Yeah,
everywhere.
That being adopted by I saw some corporation. Microsoft used it this week, which is just crazy.
Yeah, it's so Juniper is a fantastic account, and it was really funny.
Yeah. The other thing we wanted to have you on to talk about, Andrew, you mentioned Daily Wire earlier. Matt Walsh, one of the most despicable personalities in that network. Just his whole brand is being as transphobic as possible and also being really mad about Disney movies. He had his Twitter account hacked last night, and also apparently his emails. And we saw a thread from one of the heads of Daily Wire, like you said earlier, getting out in front of it.
Which makes you know that there's some weird shit in there and some terrible shit in there if they feel the need to do that.
I mean, the stuff he says publicly is already horrendous enough.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what he says in private? Andrew, what do you make of the Matt Walsh hack and the reporter at Wire, Del Cameron, who talked to the hacker and wrote about it, immediately getting his account suspended for even covering it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think first of all, talking about the hack, it's hilarious, incredibly funny. Couldn't happen to a better dude. And we'll see. I mean, the hacker would have to go through years and years of emails, before it got found out, before the passwords get changed and all of that. So I'm a little bit skeptical about how much this person actually has. But then, Del Cameron is a reporter who was reporting on this. I mean, it's a news event if a large Twitter account gets hacked like that for hours. And it was it looks like Ian Miles Chong, who is just also one of the most odious, disgusting people out there, is the one that told Elon Musk to suspend the reporter for reporting on this, and then he was immediately suspended, and it's ridiculous. And you and I were talking about this a little bit, Jordan, how this is the rules, the terms of service rules that Twitter is using to suspend Del Cameron is the exact same rules that were used to throttle to sort of hide the Hunter Biden laptop, and basically the rule is you cannot share hacked information. And Cameron wasn't even really doing that. He was just reporting on it. I guess maybe he had some screenshots from the tweets that were written, but everybody saw those, But it just shows you who's in charge of Twitter right now. I think it's not a very good sign that Elon is suspending somebody for simply reporting on Matt Walsh, who is, like you said, just one of the worst, most disgusting people out there. But another factor that is really, really interesting is that Steven Crowder, who's another right-wing idiot, was in negotiations with Daily Wire not that long ago, and he turned down their offer for $50 million, if you can believe that. But he turned down the offer, and one of the clauses in the contract that he posted was that the Daily Wire could fire you immediately if your if any of your social media accounts I don't know if it was suspended or get demonetized or whatever, but his YouTube account was demonetized today as well. And so, it's been a shitty 24 hours for Matt Walsh. It could be worse, and he shouldn't be allowed on social media because he's so fucking stupid and gross and just peddles hate for money. But it's hilarious though, and I hope they are scrambling.
Listen, if you think it's easy to rhetorically walk the line between suggesting that all gay and trans people are grooming kids being your main point of expertise, and your number two political issue that you're concerned with is making sure that child brides are normalized and part of society. Listen, that's not easy. It's not easy to hold those two thoughts in your mind and to be able to pull that off. So credit where it's due for Matt for pulling that. No, you don't actually have to hand it to him, but I do think that's kind of a little bit of a suspect, to say the least. Matt's fixation on age of consent and child brides, while also pointing fingers at LGBTQ people for being harmful to children somehow. Always an admission with these people. All these accusations, always an admission.
But, I mean, it just goes to show you, like, really, all you have to do to be one of these guys is just be a dick to the people that you don't like. That's all you have to do. I mean, Matt, you're right. Like, yeah, it's hypocritical, but Matt Walsh is going to go out there and he's going to be a dick to Dylan Mulvaney again, and so all is forgiven. Like it's the mentality of the people that are making these right wing shitheads rich by watching every single day. Like it's mind boggling to me how they watch this shit over and over and over for entertainment. I guess it's ridiculous.
Yeah, these people have been melting down about a single sponsored social media post for like 3 straight weeks. I was like barely paying attention to that. Like I'm old now and I don't really know who all these influencers are. I was kind of barely paying attention to the story, and I just assumed because of the level of freakout that Bud Light had actually like hired Dylan Mulvaney for like a big campaign or something like that. It was only when I looked into it that's like, oh, this is a single social media post. They sent her some product with like a novelty can for a little 45-second post on social media. And these people have had this pants shitting freak out now for multiple weeks over it. It's really bizarre. These are not serious people, but it's incredible to me that they have this kind of like cultural saturation and that people actually listen to them.
Well, and that's what gets clicks, and that's what gets people to watch and gets people to listen to your podcast, and that's why they're doing it. And then you've got people. I don't know if you saw the video that went viral yesterday of the guy destroying Busch Lights in a grocery store because he thought that they were Bud Lights, and he's getting hauled off by the cops.
Better safe than sorry.
And this dude, like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, this guy is spending the night in jail tonight because some podcaster told him to be mad about a beer. Like it's insane, and like they just keep ruining. They're ruining the lives of their own listeners over and over and over. There's so much evidence of this, and like, and they're getting rich in the meantime. It's crazy. I don't understand the mentality there.
I mean, the fixation on beer and Dylan Mulvaney, I find it's bizarre as well. It's like all these big alcohol companies have been sponsoring pride parades now for like 20 years, like, and they're simultaneously funding and donating to right-wing politicians. It's like they're not woke commie beer companies. They're literally just trying to sell as much product as possible by appealing to all kinds of different people. This is not like this new phenomenon. It's so strange to me that these people have acted like there's this shift that's happened, this new thing, the woke brands or the commie Coors Light company or whatever, when it's just like this has been a basic practice for these big companies for a long time now. It's very strange to me.
Well, they just throw shit up against the wall until something takes off as well. I mean, there's before, in between Dylan Mulvaney and whatever, Lightyear or whatever the previous one was, like they just throw out so much shit and eventually something takes off. Something, whatever it is, it's what's generating the clicks on their website and people to listen to their podcast. And then they just grab hold of it and hold on to it. But I mean, watch, it'll go away like after Friday, we won't hear about it. We're barely hearing about it now because we had a weekend, because the viewers need something new. They can't get mad about Dylan Mulvaney. That was last week. What's it going to be this week? They just always need that fresh meat. And like these people, Matt Walsh and conservative media are going to throw it to them somehow.
The clip from Ben Shapiro this week that really got me was the one that Brendan tweeted out a couple days ago.
Yeah.
The great suspicion is that in Frozen 4, they'll make Elsa a lesbian. If they do that, it is the end of Disney as a company. Predict it. You could write it down. It is April 17th. If they do that in Frozen 4, it will destroy Disney. It's like, dude, you are almost 40. Why do you care?
Yeah. Was that did Ben Shapiro just appear on the show? That was crazy. Where did that come from?
That was
him. I've been working on it.
That was uncanny.
I'll tell you, one of the reasons why he cares is because he's got a new children's movie company that he's trying to promote. He's pushing out children's books, and it's all part of that grift. I mean, that's why he fucking cares. And like, I mean, I don't know if either one of you guys saw Lightyear, but like, it was just a gay couple that existed. Like they weren't having sex on screen in front of people. It was just like a couple standing next to each other, and that's all it was.
Yeah, Rob was upset that they didn't.
Just hardcore penetration.
I was mad from a different angle. Yeah, I was coming at it from.
Oh man, but yeah,
wasn't
dude,
enough.
And I think that's also something that we can't overlook.
No, it
in this
was
script.
bizarre. It was bizarre, the freak out over it, definitely.
But we got to. I mean, look, it's not a coincidence that every single one of these freakouts comes with the conservative version of that product as well. We saw it with the new conservative beer that the guy put out like right afterwards. Go on Daily Wire. They're selling chocolate because Hershey's went woke. You know, they're selling mugs because Yeti is woke or whatever it is. You know, there's always like a corresponding conservative grift to go along with these freakouts. And like, it's apparently pretty lucrative, but like, I don't know, man, it's just all part of that same grift.
What's weird too, because I know that there's like a big online audience for this kind of stuff, obviously, but you got to imagine that like people like DeSantis who are latching onto this kind of stuff as well, how a lot of normies are probably just scratching their heads at it. Like DeSantis's big political issue that he's taking on is like going after fucking Disneyland and Disney and stuff like that, which for a lot of people is just like a totally wholesome, a big brand that they have nostalgia for. And that they like it's probably weird to a lot of people. This guy, this like governor running for president, and all he talks about is like his battle against Disneyland. And it's like there's plenty of valid reasons to go after Disney or any other big corporation, but they're doing it for all these dumbass, ridiculous reasons. So yeah, I imagine there's a lot of normal, average people that are kind of like perplexed by that.
Well, I mean, you don't have to speculate. You know, look at the midterms. I mean, this is the kind of shit that it's costing Republicans elections. You know, I mean, you have to be, in order to win a Republican primary, you have to subscribe to every single one of these things with absolutely no break in between, or else your opponent is going to seize on that opportunity. But then when you get out there in the general election and your number one thing is like making sure that cartoons don't have gay people, and meanwhile people don't have health care and stuff, like it looks really, really weird. And you know, you look at like these people at PTA meetings that show up just frothing at the mouth because slavery is being taught. That looks really fucking weird to people that aren't like to the 99% of the population that isn't in that world. And then you have the Republican politicians where that's all that they're talking about. So, you know, I say a lot, like it seems like the Republican Party at this point doesn't really care as much about winning majorities as much as they do just being able to get on Fox News and getting to be able to promote their book and their podcast and make sure that you send me money, you know? And like, I think that's really dangerous. Like once the Republican Party doesn't care about winning, you know, a wider swath of voters and just like that small extreme group that'll get them through a primary, that's when you see the politics, when you see the parties just going straight fascism, which is what we're seeing right now. But, you know, and I can tell you in Florida, Disney is beloved in Florida. You know, I mean, there aren't the people love being able to pick up and go to Disney World 2 hours away in Florida. They don't want Disney to move. They don't want them to close down. They don't want the prices to go up because their taxes went up. All of that, you know, so it's really bizarre. I think Republicans in Florida have gerrymandered that state so much that they believe that they're untouchable and it doesn't matter what they do, they're going to win elections. And maybe they're right, you know, but we'll see. Like this stuff is really, really weird.
Well, we will see. I think DeSantis's campaign against Trump is going to be a funny one. Just going to be a race to the bottom between both of them. And if we have any, yeah, I think you will. I think anything
after the pudding ad, why would you even do it at this point?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
But the pudding ad was so funny, and if we see anything close to the level of humor, it's going to be a ride. Like I really just want to see them beat the shit out of each other. I can't wait.
Yeah.
But Andrew, we don't want to take up too much of your time. Where can people find your work and follow you?
You can find me on Twitter. The easiest way is just search Andrew Lawrence, and I've got the baby picture with a Tampa Bay Lightning hat on currently. And then MediaMatters.org. You know, like Jordan said earlier, we watch Fox News, so you don't have to. I think it's, you know, Fox News is in charge of the Republican Party right now. And I think it's important for people to sort of keep up to with what they're saying on there, what they're pushing, all the garbage, all the nonsense, because a few days from now, that's what Republican politicians are going to be saying. But you shouldn't want to watch it. It's garbage. It rots your brain. Let us do it for you. And yeah, go to MediaMatters.org and find out what they're saying.
And let's go Rangers. All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Go Bolts. Go Bolts, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Thanks for having me, guys. Rob, good stuff. Jordan, not as good, but whatever.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to The Insurgents. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on iTunes or Spotify or at Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. You'll get the latest episodes delivered straight to your inbox as well as our newsletter. On Twitter, we are at InsurgentsPod. Tweet at us, harass Ken in our replies, and then send us your hate mail to theinsurgentspod@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening.